Before the Mustang stole every car magazine cover and the Charger hogged the drag strips, Ford had a secret street weapon, the Torino. Born in the late 60s, forged in the fires of NASCAR and honed by underground skunkworks teams, these big-block brutes didn't care for subtlety. They were Detroit's iron fists, packing raw horsepower, crazy factory tricks, and just enough street cred to make Mopar boys sweat. This is the story the mainstream muscle car world glosses over, because when you peel back the chrome, the Torino was never just a family coupe with a fancy grille. It was a street-legal monster that left tire marks across America. Sometimes even banned, sometimes forgotten, but always fast enough to shame the next lane at the lights. Buckle up, these are the fastest Ford Torinos that ever ruled the streets. Top 1, 1970, Torino GT 429 SCJ. Drag pack. If you think the Mustang was Ford's baddest street weapon in 1970, think again. The Torino GT 429 SCJ drag pack was the real king of quarter-mile bragging rights. Built for one purpose, domination, the Torino GT with the 429 Super Cobra Jet was Detroit's big block hammer. On the surface, it looked like any other mid-sized fastback. Understated GT stripes, a shaker hood scoop quivering at idle, and a stance that said, "Move or get run over." But the real story was under the hood. The massive 429 cubic inch SCJ V8 packing a conservative 375 horsepower rating, but real numbers were closer to 400 plus, thanks to solid lifters, 4-bolt mains, oil cooler, and 3.91 or 4.3 gears out back. This drag pack beast could tear off the line like few others. Clocked at low 13s in the quarter mile by magazine testers, this big-body Torino could outrun many smaller muscle cars and still haul the family on Sunday. Inside it was all business, vinyl buckets, floor shifter, no frills, just speed. Ford only built around 801,000 of these GT 429 SCJ drag packs, making them rarer than many Mustang Boss 429s. Many buyers never realized they were getting a near-factory drag car. Insurance costs and the gas crisis parked more than a few, and today true drag pack survivors are highly prized. With original paperwork, a real SCJ drag pack Torino GT can bring 6 figures, proving that sometimes Ford's biggest muscle wore a family badge. But if you think this street-legal brute was intimidating, Ford nearly built something so wild it never even hit the street. Top 2 1970 Torino King Cobra prototype. What if I told you Ford built a Torino so fast and slippery, NASCAR banned it before it ever got to prove itself? Meet the 1970 Torino King Cobra, the forbidden aero warrior. In the late 60s, the aero wars were peaking. Mopar had the Charger Daytona and Superbird. Ford needed a street-going bullet to reclaim NASCAR glory. Enter the King Cobra prototype, an outrageous, wind-cheating evolution of the Torino Cobra. Only 3 were ever built, but their shape rewrote what a Torino could be. The nose was completely redesigned, a wild, pointy shark snout with an integrated bumper and hidden headlights tucked behind clear covers. A flush rear window and subtle ducktail spoiler kept air flowing smooth. Underneath, it packed Ford's big guns. A 429 cubic inch Boss V8 with over 370 horsepower on paper, but rumored to make well past 400 when tuned. Wind tunnel tests showed it could outrun the Talladega at Daytona speeds, putting it right in the Aero Elite Club. Inside, the cockpit was standard Torino Cobra spec. Buckets, 4-speed, no nonsense. But the real magic was the aero. In the right hands, the King Cobra could have pushed 200 miles per hour. Just as the King Cobra was ready to strike, NASCAR changed the rulebook, capping engine sizes for aero cars and ending the short-termed wing car era. Ford shelved the project. The 3 prototypes were tucked away and nearly lost to time. Today, a surviving King Cobra prototype is priceless, a glimpse at what could have been the ultimate street Torino that never got to rule the roads. But if you think canceled NASCAR monsters are crazy, wait until you see how a mild-mannered 68 GT turned into a regional sleeper that humbled big blocks. Top 3 1968 Torino GT 390 High Country Special. What happens when Ford drops a big block sleeper into Colorado's thin air? You get the Torino GT 390 High Country Special, the mile-high muscle nobody saw coming. In 1968, Ford decided to push a little regional magic. The High Country Special had originally been a Mustang-only dealer promo, but a handful of Torino GTs were quietly slipped out with the same nameplate. Only about 150-200 of these big-block, high-altitude brutes were built. From the outside, they looked like any regular Torino GT. A sleek sports roof or formal roof coupe with a simple stripe kit and High Country Special badging. Nothing flashy, no hood scoop to give the game away, but under the hood sat a 390 cubic inch FE V8 good for 325 horses. More than enough to hustle this midsize up Colorado's passes and leave unsuspecting Chevys gasping for air. A close ratio 4-speed and optional 3.25 rear gears made sure the power hit the pavement hard, even at altitude. Inside, the vibe was pure Ford, buckets or bench, floor shifter, simple dash with round gauges, and just enough creature comforts to get you back from the drag strip. 0 to 60 in the mid-7S wasn't groundbreaking at sea level, but up in the Rockies, it was a rocket. Many owners had no idea what they really had. Some High Country Specials got debadged, repainted, or scrapped when gas got expensive. Today, finding a real survivor with paperwork is like hunting a ghost. Restored examples now pop up at auctions and Ford shows as ultra-rare regional sleepers, proving not every Torino legend wore a giant hood scoop. And if you think a sleeper is wild, just wait until you see the next slippery car that turned NASCAR aero into street-legal reality. Top 4. 1969, Torino Talladega, Spoiler 2. Before carbon fiber splitters and wind tunnels, Ford had the Talladega Spoiler 2, a street-legal NASCAR missile built to slip through the air and leave the competition in its wake. In 1969, the aero wars were heating up. Mopar had the Charger 500, and Daytona. Ford answered with the Talladega Spoiler 2, an evolution of the standard Talladega with even more wind-cheating tweaks. Only around 700 of these sleek torpedoes were built to meet NASCAR's production rules. From the outside, the Talladega Spoiler 2 looked like pure speed. The front bumper was extended by 6 inches and rolled under to reduce drag. The grille was flush-mounted, and the rocker panels were reshaped to drop the ride height. A short rear deck lid and subtle lip spoiler helped balance the airflow at 190+ miles per hour on the big ovals. Under the hood, the Spoiler 2 usually packed Ford's tried-and-true 428 Cobra Jet V8, rated at 335 horsepower but pushing closer to 400 when uncorked. Paired with a C6 automatic or a 4-speed, the Spoiler 2 could run the quarter-mile in the high 13S. Impressive for a full-sized street version of a NASCAR racer. Inside you got basic Torino comforts, bench seats, column shift, some cars, and minimal trim. The whole point was homologation. Aero first, luxury second. NASCAR's aero wars didn't last long. By 1970, rule changes killed the slippery giants, making the Spoiler 2 one of the last true aero legends to slip out the door. Surviving Spoiler 2S are now rare birds, with collectors paying big money for the real-deal VINs that prove they were born for the high banks. But if you think the Spoiler 2 was slick, the original Talladega it evolved from was the one that started the entire blue oval aero dynasty. Top 5. 1969, Torino Talladega. Before the Spoiler 2 refined the shape, the original 1969 Torino Talladega was the blunt force tool Ford used to fight back on NASCAR's high banks. And it didn't just rule the track, it bent the rulebook. Named after the brand new Talladega Super Speedway, this car was built to slip through the wind and outrun Dodge's Charger 500. Ford built about 750 Talladegas to homologate the design, giving loyal dealers a true piece of NASCAR engineering they could title and drive on the street. The secret? Subtle but deadly aero. The Talladega's nose was extended and rounded, unlike the squared-off regular Torino. The front bumper was actually a modified rear bumper flipped upside down to create a seamless edge that sliced through the air. Rocker panels were rolled to let the car sit lower, and the rear end was kept clean and tight. Under the hood, you got the mighty 428 Cobra Jet V8, conservatively rated at 335 horsepower, but anyone who's driven one knows they were closer to 400 when uncorked. These cars could top 130 miles per hour off the showroom floor and pull quarter miles in the low 14S, serious business for 1969. Inside, the Talladega was a basic Torino at heart, bench seats, no fancy trim, and a column shift C6 automatic. Because on the street, torque did the talking. The Talladega was so good, it forced NASCAR to scramble its rulebook, leading to the Aero War's short but glorious era. Today, original Talladegas are rare muscle trophies with real NASCAR pedigree you can still drive to a show if you're lucky enough to find one. But the street cars were just the tip of the spear. The real monsters wore full race livery. Next up, the Talladega factory NASCAR that showed how far Ford would push this shape. Top 6, 1969, Torino Talladega factory NASCAR. If you think the street Talladega was fast, the factory-backed NASCAR version was a full-on missile that rewrote Ford's racing playbook and then buried its rivals at 200 miles per hour. By 1969, Ford had had enough of losing to Mopar's aero tricks, so they didn't just build a slippery street version, they took the Talladega straight to the big ovals. Around 30-40 true factory team cars were built for elite NASCAR drivers like David Pearson and Richard Petty when Petty briefly defected to Ford. These were not your neighbor's family coupe, they were track-legal battering rams. Under the long nose sat a race-prepped Boss 429 or FE 427 side oiler, pumping out well over 500 horsepower. With better aero than the regular Torino, these cars cut through the wind and kept the nose planted when the speedometer swept past 190 miles per hour. Many cars were fitted with trick oil coolers, heavy-duty roll cages, and wide steel wheels wrapped in bias-ply rubber built for the high banks. Inside, forget comfort. Just a race, bucket seat, tack and oil pressure gauges, and a roll bar that reminded you this was life or death at Daytona and Talladega. The rocker panels were rolled under and the nose extended to beat the Dodge Charger 500 slipstream. The Talladega factory cars won Ford the 1969 NASCAR Manufacturers Championship and pushed Chrysler to retaliate with the Daytona and Superbird, escalating the Aero War until NASCAR banned these monsters. Today, original Talladega race cars are holy grails, living reminders that once upon a time, Ford's family fastback was a 200 miles per hour bullet. But back on the streets, the Super Cobra Jet SportsRoof showed how you could buy near NASCAR power, no pit pass required. Top 7, 1970, Torino Super Cobra Jet Sports Roof. When Ford slapped Super in front of Cobra Jet, they weren't kidding. The 1970 Torino Super Cobra Jet SportsRoof was Detroit's secret drag strip assassin, and you could drive it straight from the showroom to the quarter mile. The SportsRoof body was already menacing with its long, fastback roofline and wide stance, but order the Super Cobra Jet package and you got a street monster hidden behind GT badges. Only about 801,000 were ever built this way, a fraction compared to other muscle car icons. Under the hood sat the 429 cubic inch Super Cobra Jet V8, conservatively rated at 375 horsepower, but easily pushing 400 plus. The real magic was the drag pack, a solid lifter cam, 4-bolt mains, external oil cooler, and a 3.91 or 4.3 rear axle that let you launch like a rocket. Magazine tests back in the day clocked these sports roughs ripping the quarter mile in the high 13s at nearly 105 miles per hour, stunning for a factory full-size Ford. Inside, it was all muscle car function, bucket seats or a bench, floor shifter for the 4-speed top loader, and a dash that reminded you this was built for straight-linal punishment, not Sunday picnics. Insurance companies caught on fast. Many buyers found out they were paying huge premiums for the privilege of owning a factory drag car, and some SCJs were parked, stripped, or forgotten as gas prices soared. Today, a real-deal Super Cobra Jet Sports Roof with drag pack options is one of the Torino community's most coveted survivors, street-legal and track-ready, straight from 1970. But while this beast owned the strip, Ford had a convertible sleeper that mixed big block power with top-down attitude, the GT 428 CJ Convertible. Top 8, 1969, Torino GT4 28 CG Convertible. Imagine cruising Main Street top-down in a family Ford while packing enough big block muscle to embarrass Mopars at the light. That's the 1969 Torino GT4 28 CJ Convertible, the hidden fangs behind a sunny grin. By 1969, the Cobra Jet badge had earned Ford's serious street respect. But while the fastback Cobras grabbed the spotlight, a few lucky buyers ticked the box for the ultimate sleeper, a GT convertible with the brutal 428 Cobra Jet under the hood. Only about 300-400 of these drop-top brutes were built, making them one of the rarest big-block ragtops of the era. From the outside it was subtle, GT stripes, hood pins, and a small 428 CJ badge hinted at what lurked beneath. Drop the top and you'd find a bench or bucket interior, pure late 60s comfort. But fire it up and all illusions vanished. The 428 cubic inch FE big block made a conservative 335 horsepower on paper but was good for 400 plus when uncorked. The C6 automatic and 3.5 traction lock rear lets you melt bias ply tires on demand. 0 to 60, mid 6S with the top down, if you could hook up. The quarter mile flashed by in the low 14S. Not bad for a sun cruiser you could take to the drags after a date. Many buyers didn't keep these as collectors. They got used, abused, and left out in the rain. Finding a real 428 CJ Convertible today, with factory docks, is like spotting Bigfoot in your driveway. Collectors now pay big for authentic examples, since they blend rarity, open-air fun, and quarter-mile muscle in one underrated Torino. And while the convertible was all style, the GT 429 CJ Ram Air that came next doubled down on brute force, with fresh air feeding that giant mill at every stoplight. Top 9, 1970 Torino GT 429 CJ Ram Air. When you spot a hood scoop quivering at every stoplight, you know something wicked this way idles. The 1970 Torino GT 429 CJ Ram Air was Detroit's subtlety gone feral. For buyers who wanted big block power but didn't need the full Super Cobra Jet setup, the Torino GT 429 CJ Ram Air hit the sweet spot. Roughly 1,200–1,500 of these street brutes left the factory, enough to haunt stoplights but rare enough to turn heads at the drag strip. Outside, it didn't scream race car, but the hood scoop gave it away. This was a functional Ram Air system, feeding cooler air straight into the 429 cubic inch Cobra Jet V8. Rated at 370 horsepower, the big mill was rumored to push past 400 with headers and a good tune. Car mags of the day clocked quarter miles in the low 14S, impressive for a car that still looked like your neighbor's family fastback. Inside, the GT offered just enough flash to match its brawn, high-back buckets, wood-grain dash, and the optional floor-shift top-loader 4-speed. With a 3.5 traction lock rear, you could leave a pair of stripes down Main Street long enough to make your insurance agent cry. Many Ram Air cars got stripped for parts when gas prices spiked. The hoods alone became hot swaps for regular Torinos, making real Ram Air cars hard to prove today. A documented GT 429 CJ Ram Air is now a blue oval trophy, fast enough to keep pace with Chevelles and GTOs, but rare enough to make collectors sweat. And if you think only the big blocks ruled the streets, wait until you meet the 351 Cleveland M Code Sleeper that closed out the Torino's muscle car swan song. Top 10, 1971 Torino GT 351 Cleveland M Code. The gas crunch and insurance squeeze began killing big block beasts. Ford's 351 Cleveland M Code was the last punch the Torino threw, a sleeper that proved small cubes could still bite. By 1971, the Torino GT had matured into a bigger, heavier street machine, but the M Code 351 Cleveland was its secret weapon. Ford built an estimated 1,500 to 2,000 of these M Code GTs, offering buyers an affordable alternative to the full Cobra Jet brutes, but with enough twist to surprise anything short of a Hemi. Outside, it didn't shout. The GT SportsRoof was all clean lines, subtle stripes, Magnum 500 wheels, and a small 351 V fender badge most folks ignored. But under the hood sat the high-compression 351 Cleveland M Code, big port heads, 4-barrel carb, and solid lifter cam that let it spin to 6,000 RPM. Officially rated at 285 horsepower, real output was closer to 300 plus, and the lighter weight up front meant better balance than the nose-heavy SCJs. Inside, the GT was pure the 70s. High-back buckets, wood-grain dash trim, a floor-shift top-loader, and just enough faux luxury to remind you it was still Detroit's idea of a gentleman's rocket. 0 to 60 came up in around 7 seconds, more than respectable when the big block era was already fading fast. Most of these M Code GTs got driven into the ground by owners who didn't realize they were holding on to one of Ford's last real street-fighting Torinos. Survivors today are far rarer than a Mach 1 with the same engine. A true M Code GT is a collector's secret handshake, the final note in the Torino's high-performance story, just before the world turned down the volume on muscle. The 351 Cleveland ME code reminds us that sometimes the last roar can be just as fierce as the first, and that every street legend eventually fades into myth. Those Torinos didn't just rule the streets, they defined an era when raw steel and big blocks settled scores at every stoplight. Got your own muscle car story? Drop it in the comments. And if you crave more untamed Detroit iron, hit subscribe. Here at Muscle Cars Revolution, we keep these legends alive, one forgotten street king at a time. The revolution rolls on. See you at the next green light.